So today I have titled the stream Q&A. I didn't really have anything to talk to you about in the update section, as well as I didn't have a particular cover that I felt was ready for a live performance, and I didn't want to sell anything short. But I did send out some messages to a couple people to try and see if they would get some questions for me to answer on the stream today. Obviously, uh, people aren't usually that great on getting into the stream right when it starts, so I'm going to give it some time and just kind of chat for a bit. But in news of school, things are starting to slow down. I still have some tests coming up, but it seems like things are starting to even out. So hopefully, I'll be able to get back into my schedule of working on the AI while I'm there at school. I'm also looking into doing some research with professor possibly. Not really sure where I want to go with that, but I've talked to some people and looked into some resources at the campus, and so I'm going to be looking into that into the near future. I'm not sure what kind of research I want to go into, but uh, I would prefer it to be somewhere in the realm of robotics, in terms of working with hardware and um, programming software in order to talk to the hardware, and then and if possible, something to do with artificial intelligence, since that is my passion right now. So I see some people are starting to get into the stream. Just to recap, if there's any questions you want me to ask, or even if you want to think of one on the spot, just post those in the chat below, and I will be keeping an eye on that. And because the purpose of this stream is literally just to answer any question whatsoever, so I'm gonna try and answer as many as possible, assuming that people ask the questions to begin with. But we'll get there when we get there. So I see a question saying, "Are you going to Leah's party?" Yes, I am. A lot of people probably wouldn't know what that means, but to the person who asked it, I believe that was James. Yes, I am going to Leah's party. My friend is turning 21, so we were gonna go out to dinner, and then I think she's having kind of a half birthday, half Halloween party thing. I'm not sure. So I do have my paint window up, so if anyone has any questions that requires drawing, I can answer them there. But um, my friend OC, who you saw in the Muse cover, is asking if I'm ever going to make a new updated version of What Not to Do to Your Cat. So to give some context, 8 years ago, I want to say, me and my sister, who's 2.5 years older than me, used to make little skit videos, and one of them was a skit where I had a stuffed cat, and I was explaining what not to do with the cat, and they were all pretty obvious things like don't sit on the cat and uh, just random stuff like that. But if you want to go check it out, the channel is Moonpie Studios 5. I will warn you, it is edited immaculately. Someone's asking why someone else would be having problems seeing this. I'm not sure. I guess it would be different whether or not they're on a cell phone or on a laptop or something. But the worst case scenario, if you go onto my YouTube page, it should be at the top. Um, in both cases, I'm not sure, but if you need to type in the URL manually, it's www.youtube.com/Jono explains things/live. So that's pretty straightforward given my YouTube account name. Um, I guess I can ask you guys some questions too. I don't know. Does anybody have any big plans for Halloween? I know I'm going to a party, but that's pretty much it. I don't think I'd be trick or treating over here in Orlando. That'd probably be scary. In the non-Halloween way. Um, and I gotta thank you for uh, the tech problem. So um, I guess I can just tell you how my week's been going. As you can see, I went and voted the other day. I'm not going to disclose my vote to keep this nonpartisan, but it is kind of relieving to have already voted because now all the crap that's on TV and interrupting my YouTube videos is completely irrelevant to me because I have already put in my vote. So I will say, if you are planning on going to voting, the ease of early voting is pretty nice, but make sure that you look up what's on your ballot because I was really only able to vote for the two main amendments and the presidential candidate. I hadn't done much research. Um, and I'm getting a question of why I'm doing this during Cubby's movie night. I was unaware that there was a movie night tonight. I always stream on Wednesdays in the evening. I sometimes stream at 8, but I've pushed it back to 9 recently because a lot of people had classes and a lot of people were getting off work. So I wanted to make sure as many people could come into the stream as possible. But yeah, no, I didn't hear anything about Covey's movie night. Maybe he should let me know next time. I guess I don't know. He probably did. I just probably said that I'd be streaming or something. I don't know. So, I will give a little teaser to all the people that are going to the same party I'm going to. I'm pretty excited with my costume, but that's all I'm going to say. So you can be surprised by that. I will say that the Sunday following, I will look slightly different than I do now. Um, and so my friend Brandon is asking, what do I have to do to beat your fantasy football team? You have to submit and accept defeat, and then I will possibly deem mercy upon you. Um, because my football team right now has the number one running back, David Johnson, the number four running back, DeMarco Murray, and Frank Gore, who's always nice. And they kind of give me all the points I need. Um, I'm getting another question that says, what should I do to prepare for a technical interview at Microsoft that I'm not totally prepared for? So what you should do is make sure that you are in the proper attire because although I disagree with the I don't disagree with the psychology of it, but I disagree with the philosophy of it. But first impressions do mean a lot, so you have to make sure you're all dressed up. But at the same time, just be relaxed. I know Cubby's the one asking. You've done so many jobs so far. I feel like you'd be pretty relaxed going into an interview, but I mean, your resume will precede you. I wouldn't worry too much. Um, my friend is asking about Dan Bailey. He's the star of my fantasy football team, the Cowboys kicker. Now, in fantasy football, when you pick a kicker, you want to make sure that it's for a team that's going to use their kicker a lot to score points. And what I always say is that the Cowboys are good at getting into the red zone, but they're not so good about scoring touchdowns. So I always pick Dan Bailey to lead my team to victory, and he tends to put up a lot of points. But he recently got a back injury, so hopefully he's healthy from the bye. Um, someone's asking. There's a lot of fantasy football questions. Someone's asking. Says Odell Beckham Jr. and Le'Veon Bell are on a bye. What do I do? Well, I mean, you can try and pick up some backup running backs, but in our league, it's not really going to happen. Uh, and I don't know. I guess you probably should have planned for this. I know that I kind of got screwed over the other week because both my quarterback and backup quarterback were on a bye on the same week. Um, someone's asking, will there be a Lola? There could be potentially. I have the door closed at the moment, so she can't technically get inside. That's my girlfriend and my girlfriend's sister's dog. It's a small, I think it's a Pomeranian Yorkie mix. I'm not too sure about that, but she's adorable. She doesn't really have like hair. She has like fur, like a teddy bear fur. It's pretty soft. Um, Cubby is asking who would win in a fight, Doctor Strange or Harry Potter? Well, my only knowledge of Doctor Strange is from the more recent commercials. I believe that's the new Marvel movie coming out. Um, but I am not too up to date with some of the more obscure Marvel uh, characters. I know that might offend some people, but um, I don't know that either of them are really aggressive people. They seem to be more defensive characters, so I'm not sure. A lot of people are saying that they want the dog and that she thinks she's people. I'll shoot a text to Megan to see if she wants to bring Lola in here, but um, no promises. And yes, James, she does think she's people. She got several scraps from the table today, and none of them came from me, by the way. We will see what she says on that. Um, but in the meantime, I guess to pass the time while waiting for questions, I can pull up the paint screen and just start doodling. I don't know if that's gonna bring in the views. Cubby's asking if I would marry him. Um, Although that is legal in Florida now, I don't know if you're my type, Cubby. You seem like more of the leader, and I don't want to be a sheep, you know. And sheep kind of look like this. Um, they got like a cloud shape, and then they have big legs apparently, but they're three-dimensional, so they kind of go in between each other. And then big ears. They got like, I don't know if that's a normal sheep ear. We're gonna kind of go off uh, the beaten trail here. But I mean, I think sheep have tufts of hair on their head too, don't they? That looks more like a squishy turtle. Um, my friend Osie's saying that he'd be Cubby's sheep. I'll leave you two to that. Um, Want to try and keep this at least a little bit classy on the stream here. We don't want to get too uh, R-rated, you know. This is one of the more demented sheep I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. Kind of reminds me of the the cow, I believe it was, from Adventure Time, where the just kind of stared into your soul forever, and then they tried to push it over and it wasn't happening, and then they tried to get it stolen by a hawk or something. So hawks, they're relatively large birds, but you'd need a pretty big bird to take any sort of livestock. So if this is a normal sheep, we're gonna say that's probably, you want to say 3 feet long and maybe 2.5 foot tall. I'm not a farmer. I'm gonna use two different versions of foot, and then maybe containing. How many sacks of potatoes do you think a sheep is? Because let's say maybe four sacks of potatoes. SOP. And then in order to have a bird to carry that sort of mass, it would be pretty large. I know the California condor has about a 15-foot wingspan, but wingspan doesn't really matter about lifting power. We're getting some questions in the chat. Someone said to be or not to be, maybe. Um, do you believe in the first or second law of thermodynamics? Do you believe the first or second law of thermodynamics is more prevalent to day to day life as an engineer? Well, it depends on the engineering, because if you have an energy balance, that would be much more applicable to, per se, a maybe mechanical engineering. But if you were into the refrigeration business, refrigerators work almost solely. Well, no, I mean, there's always going to be energy balance, but the reason that they work is because of entropy. And someone asked, doobie or not doobie? I personally do not smoke, so I'm going to go with the latter. But I did vote yes on Amendment 2, if you know what that means for Florida. Someone's saying first law forever. I would agree, just because entropy tends to be somewhat chaotic. But um, it also is a lot easier to deal with the first law. So don't mind me for a second. I'll be under the table. I hope that wasn't too disturbing. The mic's working fine, right? Um, so Cubby is asking, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, I don't know about unladen, but I know that an African swallow would be able to carry a coconut if it were in the realm of questioning, as well. Whereas an English swallow would not or European swallow would not necessarily be able to carry such mass. We were talking about birds trying to carry masses, um, but I don't think that a African swallow could carry our sheep we were talking about. Um, and James is asking, is Lola under the table? No, she is not. The door is still closed, but I will check, and I'm not getting a response from my girlfriend, meaning she's watching TV right now and probably not on her phone. Um, they're also asking what wonders might be found under the table. Well, there's a lot of things that could be under a table. You could have perhaps a remote under a table. You could probably fit a mini fridge if you had the right sized one. Um, I see a question of what is the airspeed velocity of Lola. I think that also is dependent on some other factors. One, who is throwing Lola? Two, how much do they like Lola? And three, is it from the third floor where I live? Because everyone knows that when you drop something, the acceleration due to gravity is about 9.81 meters per second squared. So if I am on the third floor, actually, let's just make this simple. I'm on the roof, and I have Lola, the brown circle, and so then we have a surface at the bottom, and sorry, I made that brown, but I didn't mean to. I guess it's kind of like a dirt surface. So we're going to say that this is 3 meters for simplicity's sake. Then, assuming that we only give Lola a x velocity, this x velocity will continue negate if we claim that wind resistance is negligible, and then Lola's downward velocity will increase at a rate of 9.81 meters per second per second. So that means that the downward velocity will be, well, there's some interesting things that happen here because we have to consider the fact that it may take a fraction of a second for the dog to reach the ground. Now, dogs are not as lucky as cats are. They don't always land on their feet. So if Lola were to go head first, she would be relatively aerodynamic and would uh, reach a very high velocity fairly quickly before hitting the ground. I won't do the math just to not bore you, but I think you can understand the concept here. We're getting a lot of questions though. Someone said depends how hard the punt is. Now, that would also be a possibility, although I think due to the collective Young's modulus of a dog's organelle system, the punting process probably wouldn't be very efficient in transferring energy, whereas uh, a low jerk uh, shove motion would probably be much more effective. Um, I see someone named Sexy Jude said hello. Hello back. I'm not sure your avatar seems to be some sort of small gangster person. Um, James is asking what my favorite video I've done so far is. Now that's a pretty good question. Um, I guess I'd have to look back at. I can pull it up real quick just to see if there's a recent one that I enjoyed. This may take a second, but it shouldn't take too long. My channel. And if you are interested in watching more of my videos, I have an entire playlist tab available. I have enjoyed a lot of the covers just because um, I tend to have a pretty quick turnaround on those. Um, so I want to say I did have a lot of fun doing the cover of Supermassive Black Hole with OC way back when. I can probably link that in the uploaded version of this video, but um, I'd say that was probably my favorite right now. Actually, no. I think I liked the Ricky's band appearance the most when we had both OC and Dan on the stream to talk about Nuggies, girls, and play some Rusted Roots. So let's see what other questions we have. Does the gravity constant change depending on where you are in the world? Technically, it does. If you are at the top of the of Mount Everest, you would actually have a slightly smaller gravitational constant, I believe. There's also some factors of, I guess, because the Earth isn't necessarily a perfect sphere, so some sides are wider, and on those sides there would be a little bit more mass pulling you. But just to simply answer your question, yes. Um, I'm seeing some claims that Brandon can kick a dog 20 yards. I'm not sure if this is a estimated metric or if this has actually been seen, but if this was witnessed, I would suggest submitting a police report or at least some sort of animal cruelty um, report because this is probably not the best for animals. Brandon does seem to be claiming that he could kick further than 20 yards. I don't know if that's necessarily good for his case. Um, so, what are Brandon's chances of beating Ronda Rousey in a fight? So, we have to consider a lot of things with this because Ronda Rousey is in the 115-pound division. This is the only female UFC division at the Actually, I'm not completely sure. There might be two now, but I know she was in either the 115 or 125. I know Brandon is significantly heavier than that due to his constant working out and protein diet. So there would be a slight inertial advantage, not necessarily an initial advantage, but an inertial advantage due to the fact that he would be harder to move. So he would also be slightly more difficult to get to the ground. But if he were to solidly connect a hit due to Ronda Rousey's past experiences with concussions, she is significantly more prone to concussion. That's how concussions tend to work. But at the same time, she is a professional fighter who has a significant and impressive record of knocking people out. So, with the right strategies, I think he would inevitably fall. Um, he claims that he would inevitably beat her in a fight, but I would have to disagree. I think it depends who lands the first hit. So that's all I'm going to say. Um, I see that Cubby is asking who would win in a fight, Chuck Norris or Chuck Norris. That's an interesting question, and I think that they would both win somehow. That's probably the best answer I can give. Um, I think that they both have relatively similar fighting styles, although they are quite different people. And they would probably both go for some sort of famous spinning kick, and perhaps both defeat ISIS in the process. So I think that's my final answer on that. I'm going to say that Chuck Norris would win against Chuck Norris, but Chuck Norris would also win. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So just to kind of clear up this picture, when you throw an object forward off of a elevated platform, there will be a parabolic motion. That's not the best parabola I've ever drawn, but the x velocity will continue at a constant rate, assuming there's no drag, and the y value will accelerate downwards, creating this parabolic shape. This is the way that we calculate trajectories. You can actually split this into two questions, and you will see if you figure out how long it will take for the object to hit the ground, then you can figure out how far the object will actually go due to the x constant velocity multiplied by that time, and you get distance. Um, Someone's asking who would win in a fight, Java or C sharp. I think Java would be good with the evasions, causing some pop ups, but C sharp would inevitably win with pure speed and simplicity. How much wood could a Chuck Norris chuck if Chick Norris could Chuck Norris? I guess that no wood would be chucked because Chuck Norris is not made of wood. He's made of steel. Perhaps titanium, actually. Titanium is relatively strong but also very lightweight. It's sort of a best of both worlds situation. It's very expensive, but I think Chuck Norris is worth it. Um, I don't know if Chick Norris is a reference to some sort of cross dressing cosplay of Chuck Norris. I would imagine that, well, we could say that if they are up to par with Chuck Norris, then they would be able to chuck just as many Chuck Norrises as Chuck Norris could chuck. I hope that answers your question, James. Um, I do see some notifications popping up, and they are not to do with the stream. Okay, I see some people are leaving. I don't want to drag this on too long, but if there are any final questions, I'm more than open to answering them. I'll just talk a little bit about what's going on in the future. So, in the week to come, I hope to do a little bit more work on the AI, but I don't think that I will get too much more done before Saturday. I'm still searching for a way of differentiating the individual regressions because if you didn't see my video explaining that essentially I was working with Newton-Raphson. It's an iterative method of finding solutions to equations, and what I was doing was I was adjusting that method to find the pieces of an equation that could be linearly combined to create a more useful equation. And so, in a simple case, it did actually work if I listed those equation pieces in ascending order. But when I tried to do linear regression on a set of data, there was a problem because some values could be positive over here and negative over here, and the others could be flipped, and they would cancel out, become zero, and as opposed to adding together properly. It was difficult to write them in ascending order because of that. So that's what I'm working with on the AI. Like I said, I am going to a party this Saturday, so I will be postponing the stream until Sunday afternoon. We'll shoot for 8. There's a pretty nice gap between football games that I usually stream in. But I'm not sure what topics I'm going to talk about. I can actually pull it out. I think I had some in mind. I keep a list on my phone just to kind of brainstorm. If I ever think of a topic, I write it down because I tend to forget it. Um, so there's some I guess I could ask the audience if they're willing to participate. I have some possible topics. I could talk about Moore's circle, Punnett squares, cross product when it comes to um, matrices or vectors. I guess cross product has to do with vectors. And I had a analogy of a monetary system that would be using flywheels. That's kind of just a personal theory and possibly a project of mine in the future. And the vector loop, a method for solving four-bar linkages um, through acceleration. So those are some options. Actually, I could create a poll. I know that that's possible. So if you are in the stream, then I can say stream topic. Choice 1 would be Moore's circle. Choice 2 is Punnett. I believe that's 2 T's. Yes, Punnett squares. Add another cross product. Add another flywheel economics. Add another vector method. Okay, so if any of those sound interesting to you, there is a icon up in the top corner. I don't know if you're on a phone, if you'd be able to see that, but even if you're watching this not live, you can still participate in the poll. I will be able to see all of your, not who actually voted for what. It's all anonymous, but I will be able to see the results of that in the days to come. So if you're still in the stream, try and answer that poll. And if you're watching this later, go ahead and answer it right now. But I'm probably going to be signing off. It's been going for about 30 minutes. So I want to thank you guys for watching. And like I said, I won't be streaming on Saturday. I will instead be streaming on Sunday at 8. So vote for your favorite topic, and I will probably pick 2 out of there, maybe throw in a random one as opposed to a second one from them. They're all pretty heavy, except for the flywheel one is a little bit more conceptual. So, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching. I will be seeing you on Sunday.